Good afternoon, everybody. Today I'll be basically talking to you regarding the simple and the basic classification and the current classification we tend to follow. I don't have any financial interest regarding this talk. What is the relevance or the importance of classification in diabetic? One is to understand the basic level of diabetic retinopathy. The second thing is to assess the risk of progression and the visual loss associated with it, and for the follow-up purposes, and to set a screening protocol for especially diabetic screening programs, and to know how often or frequently you should follow up the diabetic patients. The wide range of classification systems which have been described for the diabetic retinopathy, the few important ones I'll be covering, and the rest of it I'll follow it one by one. The oldest and the most old classification was the Earlehouse classification, which was later modified. It is a photographic based classification. The landmark trial, as we know, is the early treatment diabetic retinopathy study, which included both photographic as well as the severity scale based classification. Then there is the International Diabetic Retinopathy Clinical Diabetic Retinopathy Scale. As we moved forward, the concept of retinopathy, we moved on to the vitreous changes, and we classified further as diabetic vitreoretinopathy. With the advancement of instrumentation, we have got another OCT based classification also. As I told, the Earlehouse classification is one of the oldest classification, where initially they followed a typical 5-field photography of a 30-degree field, and they classified into diabetic retinopathy based into non-proliferative and the proliferative changes. Later it was modified according to the Wisconsin system. Basically they wanted to make it much more simplified and a standardized way so that it can be easily practiced and all. So instead of 5-field, they moved on to the 7-field photography like this. Each 7-field overlapping fields of 30 degree each, so that you can include much more cases and diagnose much more methodically in a standard way. This 7-field classification was further modified in the 1990s to include the further detection of cases of diabetic macular edema. As you can see in the pictures, sorry, it's not moving. The diabetic retinopathy, these 7 overlapping fields, we included the macular edema also, so that there were the lines which are passing through the optic disc. They further enhanced the detection of our macular edema cases. With the newer advent of ultra-wide field photography, we can do the 7-field photography on the 200 this Optos photographic system also. But this has got a certain chance that there is a low agreement with the standard photography. You may miss some of the lesions if you follow this system. Now coming on to the standardized photographic classification of early treatment diabetic retinopathy study, they defined the lesions. For example, the standard photograph 1, they defined the microaneurysms. These are the dot-like structures, red, well-defined lesions. Then the retinal hemorrhages, which may be dot, blot, or the flame-shaped images, which corresponds to the standard photograph 2A. Then hard exudates, which may be in the form of a succinate with the center the microaneurysms, or standard photograph 5, which defined the cotton wool spots, are also known as soft exudates. These are feathery-like, ill-defined yellowish lesions. Next, standard photograph 6B, which basically defined something known as intraretinal microvascular abnormalities. These are the abnormal vessels which appears within the retina. You can see here, but they don't cross the major blood vessels. Okay, and it is thought that IRMA physically represents either the dilatation of the pre-existing capillaries or actual growth of new blood vessels within the retina. Another important and significant finding in diabetic retinopathy is the venous bleeding, which also occurs in the late stages of NPDR. Both these things, that is IRMA, hard exudates, microaneurysms, and venous bleedings, are one of the strongest predictors of progression from non-proliferative to proliferative diabetic retinopathy. Further moving on to the proliferative stage, the standard photograph 10C defined what is known as the neovascular front corresponding to the disc or one disc diameter, which is known as the NVD. Similarly, elsewhere in the retina, it is called NVE. The photographs further defined the fibrovascular proliferation associated with neovascularization, as you can see over the disc here, as defined in photograph 11. Similarly, it can be associated with fibrovascular proliferation with the disc as in photograph 15. And in photograph 13, there is a pre-retinal or a subhyaloid hemorrhage one can make out. These standardized photographs are based on the clinical findings of the classical clinical science, but it has got its own limitations, which I will be telling. What are the limitations of this photographic classification? One is, this is more number of levels are required, so you need to remember all the photographic standard things. The other thing is, requires a comparison with the standard photograph each time, which makes it difficult to remember and apply into our clinical settings sometimes. The most accepted thing is the International Clinical Disease Severity Scale, which was classically based upon the findings of the two studies. One is the Wisconsin Eye Disease Diabetic Retinopathy Study and ETDRS. It is a simple to use, easy to remember, practical and more valid method. What is this method? It consists of basically of 5 stages, low risk level stages and high risk level stages. It starts from no apparent diabetic retinopathy to mild diabetic retinopathy, which include microaneurysms only, the moderate NPDR, where you will have associated other changes, retinal hemorrhages and all. Then the severe, which goes by the 4-to-1 rule, that is a 20 or more retinal hemorrhages in 4 quadrant, venous bleeding in 2 quadrants and IRMA in 1 quadrant. Of course, the last stage being the proliferative diabetic retinopathy, which will have an associated neovascularization. As you can see here, these are the stages of the International Diabetic Severe Scale. The ETDR is also defined, apart from this, the number of levels starting from 10 to 85, depending upon whether it is an NPDR or a PDR. Basically, it helps in the assess of risk assessment. What is the risk of progression from NPDR to PDR? How fast the progression? What is the prognosis can be picked up? Another thing is risk assessment, I told. As we know, the severe visual loss can be predicted from stage to stage of retinopathy depending upon what stage of retinopathy is there. For example, in a mild NPDR, if there is a 15% of severe visual loss, in a PDR, there is almost a 75% risk of severe visual loss in 5 years. So we still consider this based on the ETDRs is one of the gold standard. As I told, there are levels which range from level 10 to level 85 on an ETDRS. So now the mild NPDR corresponds to level 1, that is ETDR score is 10 to 37. Similarly, PDR corresponds to 65 to 85 in an advanced stage. So it goes from level to level on an ETDR severity scale. You can also grade the retinopathy. Similarly, diabetic retinopathy is defined one more level of proliferative or advanced diabetic, that is called an high risk, which is based on the neovascularization of the disc. Neovascularization disc associated with vitreous and pre-retinal hemorrhage. Sometimes NVE or a neovascularization elsewhere could be associated with a vitreous or a pre-retinal hemorrhage. One more thing is, when you are classifying certain things, you should keep in mind. For example, we coined the term featureless retina. What does it mean is, sometimes with these fundus findings, we tend to underestimate the retina, but these patients would have had an advanced stage of retinopathy, so this has to be considered into consideration while classifying the retinopathy. Of course, the last stage of proliferative, that is a burnt out retinopathy, where you tend to have a avascular polyps, sclerosed vessels, ischemic retina also. This is also one of the classifications of PDR. Of course, there are more sight-threatening causes for the PDR advanced, which is associated with hemorrhage, neovascularization, detachment, rubeosis and other things. Moving on to the next, from retinopathy to maculopathy, we have focal, diffuse, mixed ischemic retinopathy. As I told before, but the more practical classification is to classify into mild, moderate and severe diabetic macular edema based on whether it's central involving or a non-central involving for diabetic macular edema, which is a more practical way of dealing a macular edema than the previous classification. Similarly, OCT will be covered later. There are various ways by which we can classify the macular edema into tractional maculopathies, edematous and the exudative maculopathies. Recent one being the surgical classification of diabetic macular edema. The OCT has brought about a change in the way we manage the diabetic macular edema, whether it has to be managed medically or surgically. For example, there will be presence of a taut hyaloid, there could be presence of an epiretinal membrane, vitreomacular traction, or there could be a taut ILM syndrome, post-vitrectomy. Okay. The concept, as we told, it is moving from retinopathy to vitreopathy. We now tend to more concentrate on the changes in the vitreous also. For example, the retinopathy has been further classified into surgical vitreopathy, intermediate vitreopathy and non-surgical. Basically, whether to operate, whether to observe, whether to treat. Based on that, this was a classical from the literature described by Dubé et al. We are moving into the more of a concept of a diabetic vitreoretinopathy than a diabetic retinopathy. Similarly, there are a lot of screening program staging is there. It is of a more of a relevance for the screening program studies. For example, one of the standard thing being the National Screening Committee, which gave us the major classification starting from R0, R1, R2, R3. What does it say is when to refer the patient, when to intervene, what sort of treatment, so that it becomes a guideline for somebody to do a screening protocol and to refer. It is one of the standard protocols which are being followed. Similarly, there are many studies which describe for the screening purposes. For example, the Scottish Diabetic Retinopathy, which also defined various grades and the maculopathy. All these basically helps in when to refer, when to follow up the patients and for the prognostic purposes. In conclusion, There are a lot of studies on classification systems which have been followed with the evolution of various instruments and all. Newer advances are coming, but still the gold standard is ETDRS and the older DRS and other classification system which we tend to follow for the prognostic purposes. Thank you.